Hey, 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 happy Monday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by thegaminggang.com, which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard. Tonight is Monday, January 31st, 2022. This is live stream 746. This is your first time joining me. Normally, I tackle the latest in tabletop gaming news, and then we take a look at a tabletop game. Might be a board game, could be a role-playing game, what have you. But my laptop that I do all the news pieces, everything for both the website and the stream, was being repaired, although I did get it back today, about 35 minutes ago. So that means I have not been doing news on the dispatch last week and, of course, for tonight. But do want to mention, back to normal starting tomorrow. So thegaminggang.com will also have news pieces. We'll have our Sunday morning comic book news that we've got usually every week. So thankfully, everything will be back to normal starting tomorrow, February 1st. But we are still going to take a look at a game tonight because I am wrapping up the old school for the New Year's celebration with a first look and page through of the Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy Referees Tome, which is from Necrotic Gnome. It is available here in the U.S. through Exalted Funeral, and it is back in stock. We will talk about that a little bit as we move along. But I do want to also mention that if you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already, and if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It'll not only inform you when the dispatch streams live, I'll also let you know when I upload other standalone videos, such as my upcoming review of Dungeons & Dragons Original Adventures Reincarnated Volume 2, The Isle of Dread from Goodman Games. I know you're probably sitting there thinking, wait a second, Jeff, you were going to do that last week. What happened? Well, I'm going to tell you in a couple of minutes. So of course, do want to also point out, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more, especially reviews that I don't do. You'll see reviews from Sammy, Robert, as well as Kevin. So, by all means, please stop by and check out thegaminggang.com. Of course, whenever we do news, those articles are actually posted on the website too. So if you ever run across something, you're like, hey, you know what? What was that game that Jeff had a news piece of last week? Let's go take a look at the gaming news, and you will find it on thegaminggang.com with links and everything else that you need. All right. Also want to point out that this is a live stream. So that means there's chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But I do my best to pay attention to chat. So if you want to say howdy, maybe you've got a question, a comment, by all means, please chime in. I'll do my best to respond. First out the gate tonight was the Madman. Yes, the Motor City Madman is one of our chat moderators as well. Clint Gibson is here. John Vogel's with us. And speaking of reviewers, Kevin R. Smith, one of our reviewers, has popped in. Once again, can't see Kevin's reviews for the Gaming Gang without going to thegaminggang.com because they be written. They ain't moving pictures like. All right. Anyway, today is Monday, kicking off the week, wrapping up the month, wrapping up old school for the new year. And the last 5 days have not been entertaining by the least bit. So, of course, if you follow the Gaming Gang, if you check out the streams, on Wednesday, I went and got my booster, my COVID booster, and a flu shot. And I felt all right until late that night. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't awful. For the most part, the next day, all day Thursday, I was just like, nah. Didn't want to really do anything. Just kind of sat around. I was reading mainly because God knows I didn't have a laptop I could really utilize. But like I said, that's back. Came about 45 minutes ago before the show started. So yeah, so Thursday I felt lousy. And then on Friday, I had to go downtown Chicago for a dental appointment, and that wasted the entire day. Always is, because I take the train in. I'm not about to drive into the city from all the way out where I'm at. But still, just the trip back and forth on the train is 3 hours, both, round trip. And it's about 40-minute drive over to the train from where I'm at. And then, of course, I'm, downtown at the appointment. So there went that whole day. And then I got a shot in my jaw for the work that the dentist was doing. And I'll be damned, it was killing me all Saturday long. It's still bugging me a little bit. But at least when I'm moving my jaw, it's not like, ow, 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 ow. So. Anyway. All right. So let's see. Omanal has popped into chat. Good to see Omanal. Remember, I was just talking about visiting thegaminggang.com to check out the written reviews. Another one of our reviewers for the Gaming Gang. Kevin says his booster didn't do much. A little tired afterward. I don't know if it was just it might have been the lack of sleep the night before. You know what? It might have been the combo of both. Now, I didn't have the like sore arm as much as I did when I first got a flu shot, because I normally do not get flu shots. As Omanal points out, their last flu shot got them terribly sick. That has not happened to me, but that has happened to my best friend Elliot when he's gotten flu shots. I'd say about 70% of the time he gets a flu shot, he's sick for the next couple of days. That didn't happen to me. I just had that sore kind of like, man, who punched me in the shoulder here? What's going on? So I think maybe the just feeling wiped out was just simply the booster and the flu shot at the same time. But I mean, other than that, I mean, I've heard people talking about how the booster changed their sense of taste, and I don't know. I don't know about that. But, tell you one thing, COVID will change a whole lot more if you're not vaccinated. So I think if I had a toss up between having my taste buds change a little bit or being dead, I think I'll take the taste buds. I don't know. Maybe just me. Omanal says, blue line. No, I do not take the blue line, actually. Don't take the blue line at all. I actually come in on the Metro train to Union Station, and then I hop a bus. It's about a 10-minute ride on one bus, thankfully. And then I'm right there at the university where I'm having dental work done for years now. No, I'm kidding. It's going to be a year in March. So, yep, that's what happens when you save some money going to a big dental school, dental university. It's the University of Chicago, or I should say, University of Illinois at Chicago, their dental school. So, anyway, that's what was going on. And then yesterday I was like, oh, you know what? I haven't gotten anything done for the website, for the channel, or anything like that. Screw it. I'm just going to watch football. So that's what I did. And my picks came through. Yes. Took the Bengals and the 49ers in a parlay. Yes. 3.5 points. That San Fran game really saved me. I actually thought the 49ers had a shot of winning. I really thought the Bengals were going to win, and we saw what happened there. So, very cool. Omanal says that they had a friend become lactose intolerant after getting COVID. Wow, what bizarre things, right? It's just, I don't know. What are they calling it? Long COVID or something like that, where it's like months and months, even after you've kind of recovered from it, you still have stuff going on. Coco B has joined us. I believe this is the first time Coco B has popped into chat with us. Said they got the shot much around the same timeline as goblinization in the Shadowrun. I'm still a human for good or bad. Kevin says if the 49ers had won, it would have been a rematch of the 89 Super Bowl. Yes, I know. And the funny thing is, I was actually, I thought it was kind of funny because the Rams had actually let the 49ers into the playoffs by not beating them in week 18. In fact, they had them down 17 points, 17 zip. And that game ended up going to overtime and the Niners won. So I thought that we were going to see another upset. So, because what better way to be like, yeah, well, I guess you should have beat him when he had a chance to keep him out. But the Rams pulled it off. Whatever. I didn't really care either way on that one. I was pulling for the Bengals all the way. Simply, I have some friends who are Bengals fans, and Kansas City's been there a couple of times lately. So it's like, you really need them in there again. All right. So Clint says they're a Bengals fan. They're still in shock. Sportsman Z has joined us. Good to have you. Thanks for swinging on in. All right. So once again, no news today. Tomorrow, back to the usual routine. About 30 minutes of tabletop gaming news, and we're going to actually be taking a look at Streets from Sinister Fish Games. You may recall I did a news piece for this, and then it showed up. It came out of nowhere. I was like, all right, okay. So cool. I liked Villagers, I should say. So this is the same company, same designer. So we're going to take a look at that. And then on Wednesday, it'll be a War Game Wednesday. First time in a month. I'm going to unbox and take a first look at Conquest and Consequence from GMT Games. So it is a War Game Wednesday this coming Wednesday. So stay tuned. This one is mighty hefty. I want to say I think this retails for $115 right now, but it is a block war game. I think maybe not, because I think it's supposed to be built on the same engine as Triumph and Tragedy, except it's the Pacific Theater. So that will be on Wednesday show. Of course, keep in mind, I still am going to take a look at these character chronicles that arrived from Beetle and Grimm's. So I've got the Rogue as well as the wizard. So I'm going to shoot a video. We're going to take a look at both of those in one video. I got some goodies that have arrived that I will be taking a peek at. So stay tuned for that. All right, enough of that. Let's jump on in and take a look at Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy Referees Tome. It is written by Gavin Norman with artwork provided by John Bingham, Jerry Boucher, Michael Clark, Thomas Denmark, Polina Henunimi. Oh, I'm going to be messing all of these up. John Hodgson, David Hoskins, Gerardo, Chris Huth, Tom Killian, Mark Kosobuki, or Buckeye, Emma Lazowski, Mark Lyons, Chris Malik, William McCall. Hardcover is back in print. Yes. You can get it through Exalted Funeral here in the U.S. You can get it for $40. Or you can grab the PDF alone at DriveThruRPG for $15. I do want to point out last week on Wednesday's show when I took a look at the Player's Tome, I believe I said the PDF was $20 at DriveThruRPG. That is incorrect. Both the Player's Tome and the Referee's Tome are each $15. Of course, talking about DriveThruRPG, please keep in mind that the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to go visit DriveThruRPG, please swing by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a little portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like this video, if you like what I do, if you like the channel, if you like hanging out over at thegaminggang.com, you can always buy me a cup of coffee or a soda by swinging on over to paypal.me/thegaminggang and making a small donation. And for those of you out there who do use the drive-through banner ads or swing on over to paypal.me, thank you very kindly. Always appreciate that. And you're helping to keep thegaminggang.com around. So Kevin says they have the Referee's Tome sitting around from the Kickstarter. They can't remember if they've looked through it yet. Well, I'll tell you what, Kevin, we're going to look through it now. So, ta-da. Few things to point out. Do want to mention that the fine folks at Necrotic Gnome and I almost said Nomadic Gnome. Like, why would I say that? It's Necrotic Gnome and Exalted Funeral were kind enough to provide me with this review copy of the Referee's Tome. But please keep in mind, neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this coverage with you. And got to point out, these days, it's important to know that. It really is. You'd be surprised how many shills there are out there, folks. Or maybe you wouldn't be surprised. Oh, and I'll mention that I need a scale for the unboxing. For the Conquest and Consequence. Yeah. I'm telling you, I would take a guess. It's probably about 6-7 pounds, that box. Because once again, I believe there are, I don't know if it's a block game, Fog of War game, but I think there are blocks in it. It's been so long since I played Triumph and Tragedy. I haven't played it since I reviewed it, and I don't even think it's here. I think it's sitting over at Elliot's house. So, all right. So enough talking about the very cool war game from GMT Games. Let's talk about the really cool book from Old School Essentials. Kevin's asking, is it heavier or lighter than Gloomhaven? Oh, it's lighter than Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven's like 20 pounds. Crazy. Let's take a look at the back here. Oh, the other thing I should mention, I'm going to stay picture in picture up here. So I am going to probably be cutting off a little bit of the upper left portion of the book as we take a peek. We're not going to take a look at each and every page either. I just want to give you a good feel for what's in the Advanced Fantasy Referees Tome. I've got reviews of the Classic Fantasy as well as the Player's Tome for Advanced Fantasy. I've got reviews of those on the very near horizon. Okay. The essential old school game of fantastic adventure, monsters, and magic expanded with advanced monsters and treasures. This book contains full guidelines for creating and running adventures, over 300 fearsome monsters, and over 300 wondrous magical items. Simple rules let imagination and fast-paced action take the spotlight. Clear, modern presentation makes the game easy to learn and quick to reference. It's compatible with decades of classic adventures and supplements. Includes all the monsters and magic items from the classic fantasy game, plus loads more. And it, of course, does require the player's tome in order to utilize this. Callahan Klatt has joined us in chat. Good to have you joining us. I believe Callahan is mentioning they're getting over COVID. So good to hear that you've kicked COVID and making your way back to full health. Fingers crossed. Let's jump on in. I had to chuckle because over the weekend I went and visited my mom, who lives a couple of suburbs away. And after that, I swung by my brother's house, where my nephew Cameron stays right now, while he's doing his Air National Guard stuff. So anyway, I had purchased the classic fantasy book for my nephew. In fact, if you saw the first look, the page through of that, I mentioned how he's been able to be enjoying reading through his copy since Christmas, and I had yet to gotten a chance to take a look until we did the first look. And of course, I brought the player's tome and the referee's tome for this over to show him, and he's like, "Oh, are these for me?" And I'm like, "No, they are not." So I'm like, "They're for me." All right, so we've got our 2 bookmarks. There we go. Very nice. We have a bit of the info that we would normally find on a Game Master screen right here. So we'll have the front and back. I'm assuming we've got that as well. So we've got our attack matrix. So one thing I had mentioned when we were taking a look at the player's tome is the fact that this is not a revamp of first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. This is old school essentials, which is basically the basic and expert rules for Dungeons and Dragons. And these are basically the 2 books. I don't want to say essentially because it's old school essentials. And then, of course, I'm saying basic, and it's basic like fantasy, right? The basic rules. But what this does is it actually takes all the cool stuff from Advanced D&D and ports it over to old school essentials. And you do not need the classic rules tome in order to use the player's tome and the referee's tome, because everything's included. Everything that you need to play and run the game is going to be included in these 2 volumes. If you're only interested in the classic fantasy, all that is included in 1 volume. Okay, so jumping on in, talking about what's in this book, talking about the referee's role, handling PCs, running the game, monsters and NPCs. One of the aspects I do dig about old school essentials is everything is concise, to the point, not a lot of fluff. A flip side of that is there aren't really examples of play. So this is not really designed for people who are completely unfamiliar with role-playing games. It's really designed for people who have played or are at least relatively familiar with what a role-playing game consists of. So we've got adventure scenarios, the artwork. I'm not sure how much artwork is recycled from the player's tome, but I could have swore I thought this was in the player's tome as well. Maybe it's from Classic Fantasy. I'm not sure. Andy Sykes has joined us in chat. Good to see you, Andy. Andy says they're quite tempted by old school essentials. Never played basic or expert, only first edition AD&D. Yes, because you were like us in high school. Poo-poo on that basic expert. We only play advanced. I know. I've joked about that way too many times. But they point out the same thing. We look down on such lowly systems. I know. And it actually makes no sense whatsoever because there really isn't that big of a difference. There really isn't. Kevin says, doing okay, dreading the winter storm that's supposed to come in later this week. Yes, we're hearing the same thing. We're hearing a lot of snow starting tomorrow night and a couple of waves. But then again, also hear that depending on what movement there might be, we might not see any snow. So who knows? Flaming Heron has joined us. Flaming Heron's our other chat moderator. So we got a section here, designing a dungeon. So getting right to the point. Designing a wilderness, designing a base town. Awarding experience points. Now, I do believe that is a new piece of artwork. I don't recall seeing this. All right, then we get into our monsters. So we got game stats, some general notes as well. We did see some creature stats in the player's tome, but if I remember correctly, they didn't have the breakdown for it. It was essentially saying, hey, by the way, you should be taking a look at the referee's tome for all the skinny on these creatures and how to read these stat blocks, if I remember correctly. So we've got infravision, languages, persons. Okay, so this is something, this is a note that's rather important as far as spells go, because I know from people I've known over the years, they didn't realize that some spells like sleep spells only affect humanoids, right? So, and like goblins, orcs, kobolds, they fall into that humanoids category. Oozes do not, but they just thought anything, right? Ah, it's a sleep spell, even though the rules say. So here it says, some spells or magical effects only affect creatures classified as persons. This includes all humans and demi-humans, as well as human-like monsters of up to 4+1 hit dice. The referee should decide which monsters are affected. A suggested list is given overleaf. So we've got our combat tables. I'm really trying to run some advanced fantasy. I really am. It's just getting a group together. That's the weirdest thing. And I mean, a lot of it's got to do with COVID, but I would love to be able to run some old school adventures that maybe people aren't familiar with, say like the Isle of Dread, right? Which I know tons and tons of people have played it, but tons and tons of people have not. And I would love to just port it over to advanced fantasy and run, a campaign like every couple of weeks. Just having a really difficult time getting players together for that. All right, so we're going to get into our monsters here. And as you can see, this is not very verbose by any stretch of the imagination. Very short, telling you, okay, this is what this is. Here's your stat block. Here's the special abilities, and moving on from there. Christopher Rush has joined us in chat. Good to see you. Sarah D has popped in and said hello. So Sarah D's in this area. Well, not necessarily this area, but not far from where I am. Says typical forecast in these parts, expect 1 to 12 inches of snow starting sometime tomorrow or the next day, extending overnight, maybe 2 days. Yeah. I lived in Mishawaka, Indiana, which is right next to South Bend. I was there for a couple of years. This relatively recently. And it was just funny that lake effect snow. I mean, I grew up in Chicago and I'd always hear the lake effect snow routine. And I'd be like, we never see any lake effect snow. What the hell are they talking about? Yeah, well, I saw it in Indiana. It was like, I'd be talking to my brother. I'd say, hey, how much snow did you guys get? It's like, snow? We didn't get any snow. I'm like, really? Oh, we got like 5 inches. So pretty wild. All right. So as an example, talking about the monsters here, we have a banshee. Incorporeal female spirits that linger after death in order to cause suffering to the living, haunt desolate moors. Then we get our stat block. And of course, we do also have, for those who want it, which, to be honest, I would probably utilize the Ascending Armor class. So we've got the breakdown here. Undead, make no noise until they attack. Immune to effects that affect living creatures. Poison, as an example. Immune to mind affecting or mind reading spells. Charm, hold, sleep. Mundane damage immunity. Can only be harmed by magical attacks. Energy immunity. Unharmed by cold-based or electrical attacks. Whale. All within 30 feet must save versus death or die. Usable once per day and only during the hours of darkness. Legends say that banshees are the spirits of wicked female elves. Now, that's not the legends I've ever heard, but. So, yeah, that is a 7-hit die creature here. So that's a banshee. So we've got artwork throughout. Once again, I'm going to skip pages here. So we don't necessarily need to see each and every monster that's in here. But as we saw in the back of the book, all the creatures from the classic fantasy tome are in here. And some additional creatures as well. That, of course, are allowable under the open game license. It's kind of a cool picture of goblins riding wolves. It's a gibbering monster. Very Lovecraftian. Or I should, gibbering mouther, not monster. Cool. So we have loads and loads. Oh, there we go. There's a lich. Living statue. Iron living statue. But once again, one of the aspects of the old school Renaissance that people dig is it's not 5 pages to cover a monster. So it's like, So Andy says they had their first face-to-face role-playing game last week since, the pandemic started. And now it's canceled because the host has COVID this week. Man, that just sucks. It just sucks. Boy, I tell you. So Callahan says they've been trying to get an in real life group together as well, but COVID definitely causes plenty of problems. Yes, it certainly does. So Flaming Heron says, asks, I should say, wasn't I going to get a group together with my brother, my nephew, and my niece? Yes, I was. But the thing is, it's like trying to tie them down. So like, when do you want to do it? Because of course, keeping in mind, my nephew is, in the Air National Guard. So he's got his weekend duty. I think it's the first weekend every month. And then, my brother, he's always up to something. And my niece, and I was hoping maybe her boyfriend, or like some of my nephew Cameron's friends, but it just can't iron anything out. It's like, can't can't get anybody to commit to anything. So, and of course, my best friend Elliot Miller, I mean, if we get together and play games once every couple of months, that's an accomplishment right now. All right, kind of zipping on through. Got all the various different monsters. Zombie, is that zombie going to be the last one? Yes, then we get some encounter tables. Encounters by dungeon levels. Encounters by terrain in the wilderness. But as I started to say, a lot of folks really like the old school Renaissance because it's just so easily presented. Now, I'm not talking going back and reading the original basic or expert books because they aren't presented as intuitively as we would like these days. But then again, you have to realize the whole hobby was in its infancy. So take a look at war games or board games for that matter from that time period as well. And you'll find those rules aren't intuitive either. So not to like, knock the case point system, which I grew up with Avalon Hill. Sometimes those rules are not easy to comprehend. So the cool thing about the old school Renaissance is that you've got a lot of the thought process or thought processes for the old school way of gaming, but with a modern approach and a modern presentation that makes far more sense. Christopher says they love the look of the book, by the way, the layout, the artwork, the use of the inside cover for DM tables. Ironcaster has joined us in chat. Welcome aboard. I believe this might be a first time visit in chat for Ironcaster. So thanks for swinging on in and hanging out with the gang. So we've got strongholds. We had a little stronghold information in the player's tome. And basically a little bit of information there too. So we get into treasures, and I think treasures is going to take up the second half of this book. So Andy says COVID has had more success than the demonic panic, the satanic panic back in the day. So for nearly 2 years, their campaign's been on hold. So Kevin says their Pathfinder groups have been meeting face to face since last summer, but they've had to cancel some games because of quarantining or waiting for tests, even though everybody's vaccinated. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Who knows? I'm not gonna get, into it about why I think if everybody could have gotten on board and gotten vaccinated as opposed to making everything political, we'd be in far better shape. Anyway, so Kevin says, I used to think Gygax was unusually pretentious because he was a high school dropout trying to show that he was actually smart. Then they read the Traveler books and realized that they all wrote that way. Yep. Someone else says old Avalon Hill games are all the same. Avalon Hill games their rule presentation is smoother than like SPI. I always found SPI to be really just a slog to get through. So we've got a variety of different treasures here. We see some magical items. Figurine of wondrous power. The obsidian steed. Horn of the Tritons. Horn of Valhalla. Lodestone. Okay, now this is like, that's like equipment. Mirror of Life Trapping. Necklace of Fireballs. Oh, yeah. A portable hole. Another aspect of the old way of, fantasy role-playing games I'm a big fan of are like magical items. Very rarely would you have just, oh, this is a +1 sword. Yeah, of course, you would see it from time to time, but I was always a big fan of magic items that have a specific use, and magical items that could also be a dual-edged sword, basically. So Ironcaster says they're ready to back the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter is coming in February. I think, if I remember right, I think it's the 23rd, where the classic fantasy and advanced fantasy box sets with the little hardcover booklets are going to get a reprint with all new cover artwork on the boxes and each of the books. So that is on the horizon as well. Those box sets right now from the previous print run go as high as $300 for the classic fantasy on the secondary market. All right, so then we've got, it looks like we've got some psionics at the end. Okay, so sentient swords. Yes, that's right. You can have your own Mournblade or Stormbringer. Extraordinary powers. This looks more like psionics. We've got clairvoyance, ESP, telekinesis, sensory powers. All right, and then we got some indexes here. And then we have the other tables and information that we would normally find in a Game Master's screen. Just like we saw on the front. We took a peek, saw it in the back as well. 248 pages, I believe. Yep, 248, just like the Player's Tome. So they both clock in at 248 pages. Once again, the Referee's Tome and the Player's Tome are back in stock. They are available through Exalted Funeral for $40, or you can always grab the PDFs of each of the books over at DriveThruRPG for $15. And of course, I will have a review of Old School Essentials, Advanced Fantasy, the Referee's Tome in the very near future. I have finished reading the Classic Fantasy and the Advanced Fantasy Player's Tome. So if I had been feeling up to it and I had the laptop back so I could actually do the video graphics, I would have had the reviews done already. But we'll see what happens. So Flaming Aaron says, as long as the weapon doesn't give me back talk, can't stand know-it-all weapons. I always got a kick out of, I think I've mentioned it before. There's an adventure. It's kind of it's relatively modern. So it can't be, the adventure can't be more than like 10 years old. But there's a sword in it. It's a magical sword and it's hanging on the wall. And the sword will, inform you when somebody's lying. But if you use the sword, you can't lie. And the sword can't lie either. So as the characters approach the sword hanging on the wall, the sword cries out, "I'm trapped." And the sword is trapped. So, but more like there is a trap when you touch the sword. So Christopher says they probably have too many OSR books now, but they really want the Old School Essentials. Yeah, I have always heard really, really good things about OSE, and give you kind of a head start on my review of the Classic Fantasy Tome. I mean, You can do no wrong picking it up. But the only knock I've got against it is kind of what a lot of people have kind of not necessarily complained about, but they've mentioned. And there's no examples of play. And I like, short to the point information in some parts of the book. And this is the same with the Player's Tome for Advanced Fantasy. I would have liked to have seen a bit more elaboration on the topic that's being covered in those like 4 sentences. But that's it. I mean, if you're looking for, you don't even have to go for a retro clone, because this is not. Well, I would call Advanced Fantasy a retro clone, because it's not a it's not a true port of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It's kind of converted to BX. So right there, that kind of makes it a retro clone. At least by the definition I have of retro clones. So Omanal says they like the idea of mini books so they can use them for a group. Love the idea of sharing them around the table. Yeah, I guess I could see that with like the spell books and the player book. But like you also got the monster book. This is off the top of my head because I have not seen the box sets up close. I have just kind of seen them online. But I would think, yeah, you would have the player book as well as the spell book. Those you'd be sharing around the table. And then you've got the monsters and treasure, those 2 books. And then for some reason, I could have swore there was a genre book. I don't know. I have no idea. All right. Anyway, just taking a peek at chat here. The old FGU games were a numbered paragraph layout. Not much enjoyment in reading those. They were good games, though, says Andy Sykes. Yeah, I got to point out, I liked FGU. They had pretty good art for that, time. Bushido is an excellent game. Not a very good rules presentation, but it is an excellent game. And once again, we were talking about the way a lot of these games were written back in the day. It's technical writing. That's essentially what it is. Which in some respects, some games today could use a little more of a technical writing approach, because some rule books are just like stream of consciousness. And those are kind of a mess. I should say they are. So there's like a fine balance between accessibility and approachability, usability, and just going off the deep end and just info dumping completely. All right, that is it for this time out. Keep in mind, remember, tomorrow we're back to normal. We will have a news section. You'll have news items over at thegaminggang.com starting on Wednesday, because I always have the news from the previous night's show Wednesday mornings. So thankfully, laptop's back. Everything works. I have no idea what they fixed. They didn't tell me. Oh, and I should point out, I was pissed because I actually sent them the box that came in. Inside the box that came in. And then they just sent me back one of those like bubble packs that are made for a laptop. It kind of splits open. You slide the laptop in a box. I'm like, where's my original box? It's like, what if I ever want to sell this? And no, they did not wipe it out. Although even though I included my login, they still set up a different administrator account. So I already have a backup administrator. So I'm like, oh, I'll be getting rid of that. It's like, why didn't you just use the PIN number I wrote on the information that was in the box with everything? Hey, at least I got it fixed. And it didn't cost me anything except for the, I don't know, $80 for the 3-year protection plan. All right. Anyway, as I was saying, that's it for this time out. Of course, if you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell, because it'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. It'll also let you know when I upload other videos, such as my upcoming review of Dungeons & Dragons Original Adventures Reincarnated Volume 2, The Isle of Dread from Goodman Games. So that is on the horizon as well. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Also, thanks to the subscribers out there, because we have passed 6,300 subs on the Gaming Gang YouTube channel. And got to be honest, the month of January, this is the most subscribers in a single month ever for the channel. So I was like, wow, cool. That's pretty wild. So and I was like, ooh, Isle of Dread. All right. If you watched live, thank you very much. Always appreciate that. If you took part in chat, well, you gained extra experience points there. Probably going to level up soon. Of course, I know there are a lot of people out there who can't watch the stream live. However you watch, live or on Memorex, it means a lot to me. It really, really does. Definitely do appreciate everybody taking time out of their busy lives to give the videos on the channel a watch. Of course, I will be back tomorrow. We're going to take a look at Streets. And here's hoping each and every one of you out there always gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang. See you tomorrow. Oh, hey, you're still here. Well, if that's the case, by all means, subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel by clicking right here. Check out the latest episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch, or find out what YouTube recommends you check out from the channel. And of course, once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks for watching.